as an educator, I know a lot of parents right now are looking at kids coming home with different assignments, and different teachers in different school districts are sending different types of assignments and different packets, and it can all be a little bit confusing and worrisome. But what I want to make sure that we understand as adults and as people that value education, and want to make sure that our children are learning everything they need to learn. Um, the idea that students can learn how to learn is part of the whole reason why I am embarking on self-directed learning in the first place. I do believe it can exist in schools as well as at home, and I think that as we as adults learn about self-directed learning, we're going to be better prepared to coach our students and children in how to become self-directed. And the first step is brainstorming ideas that we know and don't know. Being able to separate and accept the fact that there are things that we don't know yet. And how we approach those things is going to take courage, it's going to take an awareness, and it's going to take some coaching. So whether you're working with elementary, middle, high school students, college students, the idea of teaching other people how to learn first takes us understanding the steps for learning. Now, most of us went through education and thought, I learned what I needed to learn because someone told me what I needed to learn, and I did it, and it was fine. Well, now I'm talking about not having somebody tell you exactly what to do. Learning how to learn so that you can identify what you need to learn and take the steps necessary to move forward in that learning process relatively on your own, with support, but not being told to. As I get into this a little bit more, you're going to see what the difference is. Now, this first day is all about brainstorming, knowns and unknowns. Now, this app here I made to identify all of the different standards for math. Now, these aren't things that that you would say, you must learn these things in this order. If you're in first grade, you must learn all these things. I know that's what we understand standards to be, but I want you to understand that that's not what they're meant to be. All of these grade level standards, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, these are not age specific skill sets. Some students are going to be in 4th grade and still working on 3rd grade standards. Some students in 4th grade are going to be working on 5th grade standards. It doesn't mean they're advanced, doesn't mean they're behind. It just means that's the part of each skill that they're working on in their own individual development of these skills. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's say you have a 5th grader and they're struggling with this first standard 5 NBTA1. Well, that code is just a way of referencing quickly what standard you might be focusing on. But the standard itself is not that complicated. When you look at the words in the standard, a lot of teachers and a lot of parents say, no, these words, the standards aren't written for kids. Well, maybe not, but they're not too hard for them either. Recognize that in a multi-digit number, a digit in one place represents 10 times as much as it represents in the place to its right, and 1/10 of what it represents in the place to its left. Now, before you start getting overwhelmed with all the words and all of the things, and just the concept, the idea that it's math. A lot of adults feel like math is too hard. It's not. We've just been taught through repeated reminders of how long it takes to learn, and being handed F's and C's and B's and reminders that we're not learning. It's caused us as adults to have this mindset about math. We have an opportunity to help students understand what these concepts are and have a mindset that allows them to get past the part of the learning process that might feel overwhelming. So let's break this standard down. Recognize that in a multi-digit number, all right, like 2,335, all right, that's a multi-digit number. So already, if you're not sure what a multi-digit number is, that's something that you're going to want to look up. So we're starting to brainstorm a little bit, aren't we? A digit in one place, well, what's a digit? What do they mean by that? Well, we're going to want to look that up. A digit in one place, what do you mean place? For us right now, I know that a digit is each of these numbers, and I know that a place is the position in this larger number. So a digit in one place represents 10 times as much as it represents in the place to its right. The place to its right, look at that. This 3, is 10 times as much as this 3. What could that mean? Well, what could it mean? You could have a conversation with anybody. You can look up resources digitally. You can look up resources in books. The idea here isn't that you're going to have answers. The idea is that you start brainstorming questions, things you need to look up. That's the whole purpose of this first step. So if this is 300 and this is 30, we know that that's what those numbers mean. Is this 10 times more than this? Yes. So we just need to recognize. That word's really important. Recognize. That's what it's asking us to do. It's not asking us to explain or draw or demonstrate or any other type of verb. Just recognize that this digit is 10 times more than that digit. And then, and 1/10 of what it represents to the place to its left. Well, 1/10 of that phrase, that's a fraction phrase, isn't it? To its left. Well, that's a 2. That's confusing. Oh, right. Just because it's a 3. If this were a 3, then it would be, but it's not. I know, you really got to get past that. If this were a 3, because you're saying this digit to its right and 1/10 of what it represents in the place to its left, it would represent 3,000 if it were in the place to its left. So knowing that this number, 300, is 10 times more than the place to its right, and 1/10 of what it's of this place to the left, we really have to brainstorm and start to figure out, like 1/10 is a fraction. We're going to want to make sure we're clear on fractions before we get to this. We're going to make sure we know what place is. We're going to make sure we know what digits are. I mean, can we define it? Can we give examples? Do we know what it is? Can we give comparisons? Do we know how to describe? All of these different words and ideas go into this 5th grade standard. Now, this standard right here, if I click and hold in the app, it allows me to go to an illustration showing how 10 times more in one direction, and how 5 times 100, 5 times 10, 5 times 1, and the different place values with the standards and the glossary. It gives you a lot of information that you can that'll help you ask good questions of other people and other resources, but it also lets you click back to see what it is that you were supposed to learn in 4th grade, and then go back again to 3rd grade, where you were really looking at place value in 3rd grade. Maybe it didn't make sense. Maybe that's where you have to go back and look at the standard. Maybe you need to break this standard down. Maybe you have to learn these place values in order to understand the 4th grade value definitions and concepts and things. And so as you get to 5th grade, maybe this is too much and you need to go back. That's okay. That's part of brainstorming. So then you can swipe up and down and see all the different 5th grade standards and see how maybe if this one you're going to want to take a break, you took some notes, you brainstormed a little bit, let's come back to it. Let's work on this other thing. Let's look at comparing numbers, and let's do the same thing with this standard. Now this takes a long time, I recognize that, but the goal here isn't that you learn all of these skills all at once. The learning process starts with brainstorming and identifying your strengths and weaknesses, your knowns and unknowns, and being able to brainstorm and mind map as strategies that you can circle back and reflect on your learning as a process over time. So find some activities. Go out and find different games. Find different tasks and things that allow you to have fun with different standards, but keep track of all of the different specific skills that you're learning, because as you get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, if we come back to skills 6 through 8, there's going to be specific skill sets that you're going to need to understand from K-5 standards in order to really build on the types of ideas in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So make sure you're paying attention to how these skills develop. And you can use this app to help you explore and brainstorm.